Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach, we will continue what we are learning, the holy letters of the Baal Tanya. We're learning letter number 13, and the She is exclusive for Shalema for Hinda Bastabaracho. We are learning this letter by the Pasuk in Tillim, that how great is the kindness and the goodness that you put away, or that you put into the ones that fear you. The Pasuk continues about the goodness that you have caused for the ones that have faith in you before man. The Holy Baal Tanya breaks up people into two modes of expression. One is soften l'riecha, put away, hidden in those that are introvert, those that are more on the modest side, those that are limited in their work of Hashem, limited in their personality, those that their stream of consciousness, they get energized by being internal, by going deep inside. The famous story that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe asked the Rebbe, why doesn't he fill up 3 pages of interesting things that are going on in his life? And the Rebbe responded that since I remember myself, there's nothing interesting to report. And there are 2 types of people. There are people that live with the news and the world around them, and there's people who live with the Kol Chaya Misnanea, the world, the living, energized world of their hearts. And he says, although I do not see a merit of one over the other, for as long as I can remember, either because of the way I was born, or because of nurture or nature, or because of things that are outside of me, for as long as I can remember, I am from those that get energized from an introvert nature, from living with the news in the world of my heart, or the world of my internal perception of the world. And the Rebbe said, because there's nothing interesting, because I do not live with anything interesting outside, everything is inside, so I have nothing interesting to report. This is a very deep, mesmerizing lesson from what Baal Tanya is teaching over here. What, as we explained, that in order to fully comprehend, in order fully to grasp the enormity of the Baal Tanya, one has to go through the thousands of pages of Likutei Torah and Torah Or, with the thousands of discourses that the Baal Tanya himself wrote in the Maimorim, in addition to Torah Or and Likutei Torah, and then in his vast amount of information that his son, the Mittler Rebbe, and his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, the thousands of pages that they've written, and the 35,000 hours that the Tzemach Tzedek devoted just in constructing the Maimorim of Likutei Torah, to appreciate and to see how we radically redefine every area, be able to appreciate one word of the Baal Tanya, that this is not an exaggeration, where although there have been great giants we say that there's the Rambam. The Rambam is Moshe ad Moshe lekom k'Moshe. But few people can grasp the enormity of the Rambam. You have to look at the Rogachover. You have to look at one of the great giants, the last generation, who in one little halacha in the Rambam, he quotes 70, 80 sources. And he says, this is what the Rambam meant to say. To read the whole entire Rambam and to see the Rambam does not quote one machloikis. The entire Shas, the entire Talmud is filled with thousands of debates, and every single thing there's a confusion and a debate. The Rambam writes his whole sefer. And he writes, after you have my sefer, you do not need any other sefer. To be able to understand, to be able to see what the Rambam saw, to be able to see the Torah as one living, breathing body, to understand that the debate between the sages was a debate just from perception. One was focusing on one angle of the Torah as a living, breathing man, the Torah as an enormous intelligence of God. And one was focusing on just one tiny minutia, one tiny angle, and that's why he felt that the law was like this, and the other was focusing on something else. And then the Rambam comes and he makes the entire thing just one perception, just to give you the complete picture. But to be able to see that, you have to have the mind of the Rogachover, the mind of, to see the enormity of the vision of the Rambam. And the same exact thing with the Holy Balatanya. There's been few people in history that with their radical explanations, that they have redefined every area of Judaism. And this is the enormity of the Balatanya, the enormity of this revelation of the esoteric wisdom of the Teirasai, of the Yifutzim Hanesech Chutz of the Baal Shem Tov, is that anything the Balatanya touched, anything he put his hand on, any area of Torah mitzvahs, any area, whether it should be tzitzis or tefillin or tefillah, whatever you thought about it till now, came the Balatanya, and he actually took the entire notion, the entire knowledge that you had about that concept, and he redefined it. He gave an entirely new meaning to it. And this is exactly the same thing what he's doing in this letter. That's why to appreciate, it's very easy to learn a Chiddush from the Holy Balatanya. And when you learn a Chiddush from the Holy Balatanya, you can say this is a wonderful concept. But to be able to, for 1 minute, to see how did you perceive reality before the Balatanya, and how he redefined and reframed, and how he gave an entirely new concept. And the reason this is so important is because psychologically, emotionally, ontologically, from a perception of my purpose in life, to understand the vast changes that this wisdom gives to you, that a person who lives life and he's looking for truth, he's looking for peace, he's looking for tools to navigate life. If a person would understand truly, if a person would understand truly the reframe, the entire new revolutions that the Balatanya gives, then for all purposes of tools for life, one would sit and toil to try to understand what the Balatanya saw. And this is the reason why we're spending this enormous amount of time on these letters, because to appreciate what he says over here, you have to see with your mind's eye the perception. Because just as you think you're understanding what he meant to say, just as you think you're understanding it, you come to the realization that there's something deeper. There's something yet more profound, because the miracle is not only in the revolutions that the Baal HaTanya gave. The miracles is like the famous story with Reb Zusha Anapoli, that the two brothers that he wrote, it's amazing how you were able to put such an infinite God into such a small book. Well, the idea of that is that not only is the Baal HaTanya revolutionizing everything we know about our life, everything we know about our psychological life, our spiritual life, but he's done it by putting these deep secrets into these words, which means that you can mine the words, you can learn them and study them. And the deeper you go, the deeper the transformation will be, the deeper you will be able to unearth enormous transformations. And this is what we are explaining over here with this letter, that the Baal HaTanya is taking this pasuk in Tehillim, and he's explaining that there's two types of people in this world. There's a person who lives with faith. There's a person who is very superficial. It could be a man or a woman, but they're masculine nature. They are extrovert nature. They are very superficial. They are very easygoing. They are very expansive. They are always exuding. They are always in revelatory mode, not just in a happy, but always in expansive, always expressing themselves. And then there's a different person, the person who's internal, who's an extrovert, who gets energized by the world of his heart, the world of his internal thoughts and feelings and modes. And the tremendous understanding of these two modes, where they come from, why they're there, which one's greater, what does it mean to be like that? And the Holy Baal HaTanya over here really is one of the deep secrets that he's sharing over here, is that in fact, even though they are sourced in different energies of God, one actually creates the other. And this is what we've spent so much time explaining, the 6 days of creation. Explaining that man is a product of the 6 days. Man contains the 6 energies within him. And you cannot see a person without 2 eyes, without 2 nostrils, without 2 hands, without 2 lungs, without 2 feet. You cannot see a person without 2 ears, which is the right and the left. They make up each other. But we're not thinking about that deeply, because we're not realizing that what you're looking at is the opposite. You're looking at the mirror. Whenever you look at the mirror, you're seeing the opposite. So the right and the left are opposite each other. Your right eye and your left eye seeing 2 different things, but you're not aware of it. Your right ear and your left ear are hearing 2 different things. Everything on the right and on the left is 2 separate modes of consciousness. Your right side is what you're giving to the world. Your left side is what you're taking from the world. Your right side is what you're giving superficially. Your left side is you're taking intimately. Your right side is your ability to feed another person. Your left side is your ability for you to eat yourself. And these are 2 different lights. They're light years apart from each other, although they look like they're mirror images of each other. Your right foot is going to allow you to walk, but it's your left foot that will pull you back. It's your left foot that will hold the right foot's ability to move. Your ability to do anything, if it's not contrasted with the opposite, then you're actually not functioning at all. And this is the tremendous enormity to understand. When you learn this letter, yes, he's breaking up man into two modes, but you yourself have this all the time. The way you feed somebody and the way you get fed are two different things. Because when you feed somebody, you can put yourself into it, you can cook the meal, you can spend many energies into preparing for somebody for something. But when you're giving, you're still giving from your superficial nature. But the person who takes your meal and they eat it and they get energized by it, the thank you is coming from deep within. The giving is always coming from the right side, is always coming from superficial. It's always coming from the daytime. I'm a giver, I'm shining. The taking, the internalizing is always deep within. The food that you give me, that you have just prepared for me, you have prepared it superficially. You may have invested your energy. You may have used your talents. You may have put your art. You may even get full from the fact that I will eat, but it's my consumption, my deep consumption where I bring the food deep within me that will allow you to get full from my inner consumption. And it is my thank you that I give you that's coming from deep within. And that's why there's an element of shame, because the thank you is coming from deep within. And that's why the way we say thank you, the way we compliment and the way we say thank you are two separate things. Kind words that are said as a compliment cost no money. Kind words that are said as a giving, they come from a mode of expansiveness. But kind words that are said from receiving come from deep within. And that's why we've explained in the past that somebody who gives charity to a poor man gets 6 blessings. But when you say kind words to him, when you comfort him, you are getting 11 blessings. Because when you give him, you're giving him, you're creating shame, even if it's not your intention. You're creating a hierarchy where you're the giver, they're the receiver. You're forcing them to take the deep within and to attribute that to you. And even though that's the life, and even though it's much better to give the poor man his food rather than to let him starve, but he will say thank you from deep within. He will feel indebted. He will feel a humility. He will feel indebtedness from deep within. And that depth is kolatzmoisei temarna, his whole being. He feels it in his being, his indebtedness, his debt that he has to give you for what you just gave him. Even if he knows that you're the kindest person in the world. Even if you tell him, don't make no issue of it, it's nothing. It was easy. But he received it internally. He received it with his depth, with his left side. And therefore, if you can comfort him, not just say good words, but actually comfort. If you could try to share with him words of emptiness, not emptiness that he should feel empty, but that you should convey your emptiness. You're comforting him for him feeling so indebted, for him taking it so deeply. If you can eliminate the boundaries, the barriers between you and him, if you could feel like also a taker, if you can create passion, which passion means pain, passion means suffering, it means emptiness. Pati, the word pati in Latin means mirache, mar. If you could create a bitterness, not a bitterness where you are invoking in him a bitterness, but he is already bitter, he is already empty. The lack is much more internal than the having. The having is always superficial. The internal lack is a bitter feeling. But if you could eliminate the boundaries between you two, then you both can feel empty together. And when someone feels together with me, when we have the lack together, there's a tremendous internalization. And this is the idea of Hanoisim Prutal Onim is Borach B'Shesh. If you give a person, a poor man, money who is blessed with 6 blessings, but when you comfort him, not just say nice words, when you comfort him, you comfort the lack. You comfort him for the fact that he had to bring whatever you gave him deep within him. The fact that he was compelled to feel indebted. If you comfort him for that debt, if you have the same debt as him, if you share with him the fact that all you, if you know deep within yourself, the Gemara says that Shimon HaTzadik lived 22 years. Not because he was the big tzaddik in the time of the Gemara, but because he held out a widow and her children. Because he gave some compassion, because he suffered with another person. He heard that another person was in hunger and he suffered with her. 22 years when it came time to die, because he took away that shame. So when you share with the poor man that you know that really they should be wealthy, but it's only to allow you to have a longer life. It's only to allow me to continue on. It's only to allow me to continue getting the blessing from God. If you bring up your children in a way that they're entitled to nothing, and it's only when you share with someone else that you go in the footsteps of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's only when you share, only when you're in that space do you deserve. Because Avraham was kind, God was kind to him. Yitzchak was kind, God was kind to him. Yaakov was kind, God was kind to him. All of their lives, as it says in Tanna de Velio, and as it says in all the Midrashim, all of their lives were riddled, were filled with compassion. And that's why they merited the compassion of God. If you suffer in compassion, meaning to say, if you always feel that you're no better than anyone else, and you're giving from a place of humility, a place of paucity, you never look at a person and say, oh, you don't deserve and let me judge you. You don't deserve and therefore let me try to give you. To invoke God's compassion, from a place of humility, a place of paucity. If you're in that space, then you have eliminated the shame of a poor man. And that's the holy Balatanya is sharing this unbelievable idea in the holy letters, which essentially is, the Rambam says there's 8 levels of tzedakah. This is a debate if the highest level is partnership, putting someone in business, teaching a person how to fish rather than feeding him for a day and causing him shame, eliminating his shame, or by giving him hiddenly, where he doesn't even have to thank you at all. You've taken away the shame, the indebtedness. But ultimately the reason is because mitzvah tzrichas kavana. There's a mitzvah needs a kavana. A mitzvah needs a meditation and intention. Today people are so into meditative eating, conscious eating, intentions, creating intentions. Act without intention is infinitely less than an act with potential, with intention. And the tzedakah is the same thing. The famous joke that's told in the Svarim, that the reason we don't make a bracha, the reason we don't have kavanah with the mitzvah of tzedakah is because a person will say, oh, let me put on my gartel, let me make my kavanah, l'Hashem yichud, and by that time the poor man will pass away. And this tremendous idea of understanding this. So is there no meditation? Is there no kavanah? Is there no intention in tzedakah? Explains the holy Rambam, explain the Chassidic masters, there is the intention, but the intention lies with the poor man. Kiguf beloy neshama, every mitzvah is the body of it, and the neshama of it's the intention. When you have a rich man and a poor man, and the rich man exchanges money to the poor man, the kavanah is the speaking, the kavanah is the intention, the kavanah is the emotion, but it's not your emotion. It's the emotion that the poor man has to feel. If he feels indebted, the mitzvah is below you neshama. It's still a mitzvah. You have still vivified him. You've gave him an opportunity to energize his wife and his family. You've done something. But if you've comforted him, if you eliminated the shame, if you conveyed to him the truth that we are both equal in the eyes of God, and I need God's compassion, and I need sheyiches b'ni, and you have comforted him with the truth of life, where he's not indebted to you, but we are both indebted to God. And if anything, the poor man is richer than the rich man, because the poor man gives the ability for the rich man to keep on getting from God without even having to suffer. And he gets to have the suffering of the poor man. There's a partnership that when the malachim come and they want to punish the rich man for doing something that he shouldn't have done, he's already partners, he's already bought off the pain and suffering from the poor man. He eliminated it, so he became a partner with it. The poor man is also selling something. He's selling nuclear medicine. It's too much for him to bear, too much pain for one man to bear. And when multiple people become part of that poor man's endeavor, poor man's journey, adventure, then the rich man has fed off both worlds. He's lived off the fat of the land because he's enjoyed his own life. And when the angels of destruction seek to exact consequence for his actions, for the pompous, arrogant ways that a person who feels that he's living unlimited and he has unlimited money, when it comes to exact accountability, this man eludes because he shows that he's already a partner in this type of suffering. And when a rich man, a man who's expansive, realizes that the poor man is providing him far more, and he conveys that truth to him, so he's eliminated the shame, the internal shame. And this is the secret over here, what he's trying to give the Holy Balatani, where he's trying to show that even people that are deeply internal, which means that they breathe things deep within them, they are very intimate people, they are very introvert people. It would seem like those people are from a place of paucity, a place of emptiness, a place of bitterness. But he says, in fact, it's the opposite is the case. It's God's enormous light that is creating introvert people. It is God's enormous kindness that is creating somebody that's in that space. Because in fact, both the rich man and the poor man have to feel equal in the presence of God. And they both have to feel internally as if they are indebted to God. And when they both feel that way, when they give entirely differently. And that's what he's coming to share over here, that an introvert person, a person who's in a place of real qualitative paucity, which means that he feels so overwhelmed, so indebted to God, so introvert, so he is a person that's medactic b'mitzvahs as opposed to a big rabbi that runs around with knowledge. He's a person that's very modest, very limited, very miserly in every area of his life, because every moment is significant. You would think that such a person doesn't have to give expansively. And he says it's exactly the opposite. Why are you sourced in the left side? Why is both the rich man and the poor man, why can they both be introvert people? Why can they both be people that are from the left side, that feel indebted, that feel deeply limited? It's only because of the overwhelming light of God. You understand? Just like your right side has opposition from your left side. God's kindness that he gives you, just like Avraham Avinu, when Avraham Avinu got such kindness, it looked like Avraham was chesed, but actually offer ve'efer. Yaakov Avinu ketointi mikol achsodim. Yaakov Avinu was humble. He became an introvert because of the kindness that God gave him. Just like when we have shame, when somebody gives us an enormous amount of kindness, it's a deep indebtedness. It's not a shame that makes us want to bury ourselves and go. It's a form of indebtedness. Now, man to man, maybe that's not the best, because nobody should feel shame in front of another person. But in front of God, l'riecha, tzafin l'riecha, what's put away for a man, for God, the whole reason that I become a qualitative person, the whole reason why I'm indebted is to be indebted to God. And to be indebted to God means the next time I give, to give with a deep intimacy, to give with a deep feeling. The whole reason I'm suffering, the whole reason I have any suffering in my life is to suffer with another person. And that's the secret that he wants to share. He wants to get it deep into the left side. Do you think the introvert quality means the fact that you're focusing on the halachas of being very introvert and very miserly and very modest? Do you think that that means that you shouldn't act in an expansive manner when it comes to charity? It's precisely because your soul has gotten such compassion from God that you're in that space. Because a giving God creates a humble person. And it's only a person who doesn't need God, that feels in an expansive mode. Of course, spiritually speaking, there's something called the extroverted seal and the introverted seal, which we'll get into a different day. But spiritually speaking, when you feel arrogant, when you feel even on a spiritual level, God is aloof. God is not so much in your presence. But when God is in your presence, you're humble. But that humility is not a reason for you to not be in expansive mode. And that's the tremendous lesson what he wants to share over here. That the fact that you feel humble, the fact that you feel limited, the fact that you're introvert, the fact that you don't have money at this time, the fact that you're in a space of paucity is all the more the reason to give. Because it's all the more that you're alive, that you're suffering with another person. It's all the more that even if you can't give, to convey to the poor man, I want to give. To give from a place of paucity. That's the essence of what he wants to share over here. That when you, what would that kindness that was put away is deep within you. Because you are holding on, you are extracting the essence of the giving. And if you're humble, if you're in a state of paucity in any area, whether it's because you're humbled by God, whether it's because your soul is introvert, whether it is because you're going through a period where life is tough, and you're in a space of eretz kosher and shana kosher, recession, it is in that moment that you can understand the poor man and not look at him and tell him, I'm also poor. But to actually maybe convey that to him, but say, somebody who sees he doesn't have, he should give compassion. And compassion doesn't only mean money, it means to understand the other person, to share with him, to be in the same boat as him. Not to make him feel more shame by his problems. But in fact, because you're suffering, you can suffer together with him. Your paucity can help remove his paucity. And this is the tremendous lesson what he's trying to share over here. That there's a time to be expansive and there's a time to be introvert. But both of them are forms of giving, to allow someone else to be, to listen to someone, to comfort them. Not always do we take by giving. Sometimes we give by listening, by empathizing, by understanding. But you have to understand the right and the left in their entirety. You have to understand where they come from. You have to understand this enormous difference between taking and receiving. Taking is to take with quality. To give is to give with superficially. So even when I'm on the taking side, even when I'm on the introvert side, even when I'm an introvert, but I have a tremendous amount, when I'm going to give entirely different. And when I give like that, I won't create shame in the other person. It's the shame that's created only from expansiveness. So that's what the Holy Baal HaTanya is beseeching his students that are going deep within the meditative introvert style. And he's telling them, you think you're poor, you think you're more introvert, you think you're more miserly, whatever subscription you have at this point in your life, it's precisely then that you can give. It's precisely the other point, the ones who believe, is before man. It's a superficial thing. It's what people will see. But internal, to give with your core, to give from your indebtedness, to give from your place of shame, will eliminate the shame by the other person. Whatever you're giving to them, whether it's a good word, whether you're suffering with them, or whatever you're giving, if you're giving from a place of tzafanta l'reacha, if you're giving from a place of fear, doesn't mean fear of man, fear of God, but fear means that you're in awe. You're indebted to God. If you're giving from that space, if you're an introvert, that means you're indebted. You're more in touch with your inner consciousness. You're more in touch with your inner emptiness, with your being fed rather than feeding. If you're giving from that space, it's Rav Tufcha. It's an unbelievable. It is. You're only in that space because you got this enormous kindness from God, and you're only the way you will give will be with what you retained from that enormous kindness that God gave you. And whatever you're going to give is going to be so qualitative, it won't evoke shame in the other person. Whatever you're going to give is the purpose of why you're introvert, is the purpose of why you're in that space. And to understand that vastness, that nighttime energy, as we explained, this is the enormous revolution that he's giving with this letter. And to internalize this in my life, to understand the real difference between givers and takers, and to understand that we have to have a scholarless of both of them, as we're going to continue to explain further tomorrow.